What's good, family? So mash the like button, subscribe and lick off the bell. Wow, we've got a crazy update just come across your man the YB's wires this morning. Crazy update in the Errol Spence, what are we calling it? In the Errol Spence Igate situation. Now, for you man who don't know, let me give you a quick summary right now. Errol Spence pulled out with an alleged retina tear. An alleged retina tear back on August 8th, before the Manny Pacquiao fight, which was scheduled for August 21st or August 20th. Yeah, he pulled out saying, oh, didn't know, but the commission, during one of my commission pre-screening tests, they found a tear in my retina. Anyway, that's what the story was for a long time. After the Manny Pacquiao fight with Ugas, as we know, the coast was then clear for Errol Spence. So since then, Errol Spence has actually come out and made an updated statement on what happened. And this is what we're going to read out today, because it's truly shocking when you know the wider context and you know the deeper information that's been going on surrounding Igate. Yeah, check this out. Errol Spence Jr. suffered a retinal detachment / break in his left eye during sparring weeks before his scheduled fight with Manny Pacquiao, the 31-year-old unified welterweight champion, told ESPN. So you got to remember, this is an exclusive report from Errol Spence via ESPN. Do you understand? This isn't commentary. The words you're seeing on your screen now, and I'm reading to you now, yeah, is official statement from Errol Spence via ESPN. It's not commentary. So Errol Spence has just told you he suffered a retinal detachment / break during sparring weeks before his scheduled fight with Manny Pacquiao. During a session at the world-class boxing gym in downtown Dallas, Spence said he felt something amiss and stopped the session and said, my eye. Despite his left eye not being right, Spence told ESPN that he had sparred again 2 days later, and then, during a pre-scheduled medical checkup in Dallas the following day, his fears were confirmed, as the doctor said Spence's eye looked like dark clouds. Spence was told not to spar until he was examined by an eye specialist. You don't want to lose your eye, the doctor warned him. After consulting with PBC founder Al Heyman, Spence immediately travelled to Las Vegas on August 8th for his comprehensive pre-fight medical testing. The eye exam was conducted on August 9th by an ophthalmologist, Dr. Thomas F. Kelly, who told him he couldn't fight and reiterated, you got to get this fixed ASAP. With a diagnosis of a retinal detachment / break, Spence was deemed unfit to fight in what was the biggest event of his career, an August 21st pay-per-view bout with Pacquiao. Spence returned to Dallas the following day and underwent surgery, an air bubble placed on the recovering eye. That same day, Ugas stepped in to fight Pacquiao on 11 days' notice. Then on Saturday, Ugas scored the upset, surely spoiling the prospect of a Pacquiao-Spence fight for good. Yeah, whatever. Isn't that convenient? Mr. Fresh, Mr. Spence pulls out and it scuppers a fight ever happening. Very convenient. It's almost as if Spence never wanted to fight Pacquiao in the first place. Oops. I'm grateful that I caught it. It's a career-ending injury for a lot of other boxers. Oh yeah, but not for you, is it, Spence? Not for you. Guess what? Because you didn't have it. How about that? Spence told ESPN in his first public comments since the surgery, a lot of them don't get checked up. Even if this would have happened early in training camp, I would have still tried to spar and things like that. And it probably would have damaged it permanently. Now just remember that at the start of this comment, at the start of this statement, Spence said that he had a damaged eye and went sparring 2 more times after that. So that's what I'm saying, it doesn't make sense. He's doing the things he said other fighters shouldn't do. Which tells you what? Tells you he never had no damaged eye. He's just making it up as he goes along. And we're going to expose more of it as we get to the end of these statements here. I'm just grateful it happened when it happened. I caught it sooner than later. And I have another chance at doing what I love. Now, there's the end of the bulk of the statement. Now in this video, I want to read back to you, and I'm going to expose what's really gone on here. Because as you know, if you've been following my channel, you know that eye gate and leg gate is all part of the PPFPP, yeah? The PBC Protection from Pacquiao program. The PPFPP is an operation made by a cabal of Spence, Heyman. They're the guys who head up the PPFPP. And they've used hitmen such as Justin Fortune and your Dennis Ugas, who have played minor roles. Or who have played hitman-like roles in this essential conspiracy. But you best believe the PPFPP is active. Ever since Manny Pacquiao smoked Keith Thurman, they couldn't ever afford again to lose one of their key pay-per-view stars to Pacquiao. And that's why they brought in Ugas, who'd been prepared for a full camp to beat Pacquiao, and that's why they tainted Pacquiao's drink via Justin Fortune to give Manny Pacquiao leg cramps, and that's why Errol Spence made up his fake eye injury. Now you know what? I've already told you, man. Let's get to the expose now. Let's break this down. So the first part, let's go back to the start of this statement. The first part of this statement, yeah. Errol Spence alleges he suffered a retinal detachment / break. Now what do we know? When this news first came out around August 8th, it had nothing to do with a retinal break or retinal detachment. What Errol Spence alleged was that it was a retinal tear. Completely different injuries. Don't forget, initially when Errol Spence came out, he said he didn't even notice it. He said he was just at the Las Vegas Commission getting it checked and, oh, they found something. Remember, that's how the story came. Errol Spence said he was minding his own business and they found it. They found a tear. Which made sense. How he could not notice it as such, allegedly. He alleged, oh, I didn't really notice it because it was only a tear. Now they say it was a full detachment. So how does that make sense? Initially, Errol Spence's statements was, oh, he didn't even know it happened. He didn't even know it. At which time, myself and others found it skeptical. How can you not know you've got a retinal tear? Now they say it's a full retinal detachment. The reason they had to develop this whole new story now is because of all the holes they had in the narrative. This revised statement they've put out 3-4 weeks after the actual event is to cover up all the holes, all the gaping holes they had. Because not only have we just exposed the start of this statement, like you can see on your screen now, initially all the reports were, all the statements from PBC was Errol Spence retinal tear. So how is it 3 weeks later all of a sudden it's a retinal detachment? Oops, I'll tell you how. None of it's real. It's all made up. Anyway, the next part. Let's expose the next part. The next part. Errol Spence says, during a session at the World Class Boxing Gym in downtown Dallas, Spence said he felt something amiss and stopped the session and said, my eye, my eye. Despite his left eye not being right, Spence told ESPN that he sparred again 2 days later. And then, during a pre-scheduled medical checkup in Dallas, the following day, his fears were confirmed, as the doctor said Spence's eye looked like dark clouds. Spence was told not to spar until he was examined by an eye specialist. You don't want to lose your eye, the doctor warned him. Now, what I put to you is, all of a sudden, yeah, why is it 3 weeks after Spence's pullout, this is the first time we hear about the sparring stories? Initially, when he first pulled out in August 8th, because of his retinal tear, which is now a retinal detachment allegedly, he was claiming he didn't notice. He said that, we don't know what happened. I just turned up to my Las Vegas eye check and they've found something. Do you guys not remember? Why is it we never heard about this big sparring story beforehand? And if you disagree, if you Errol Spence fans are mad, and you did hear about this big sparring story, please send me the link. Send me the evidence of Errol Spence and Team BBC discussing this big sparring story where he hurt his eye. There wasn't none. Why is it taking 3 weeks to hear about this massive story? I'll tell you why it's taken 3 weeks. Because guess what? When this story first came out, and Spence said he's got a retinal tear and he just didn't notice it, everyone, myself included, said, how can he not notice? Doctors were coming out. I've got doctors off the record telling me there's no way Spence could have had a retinal detachment or a retinal tear and not know about it. Which is why they've now 3 weeks later developed this new cool story. Oh no, yeah. Oh no, we did notice it. It was in sparring. They filled that in 3 weeks later to fill in the gaps. Because anyone with a brain knows it's not plausible. How can you not notice? How can a performance athlete who's using his eyes every day not notice there's something wrong? And just rock up to the commission eye test and they find it before. How can a commission eye test find you're half blind before you know it? Oops. And this shows you how the whole story is fake. Because it's absolutely impossible for us to only now be hearing about the sparring story. If this was true, yeah, and Spence genuinely hurt his eye in sparring, they would have released that narrative at the start on August 8th. Errol Spence was sparring, he got his eye hurt. They didn't release it then. They're releasing it now. Conveniently. Now, why wouldn't they have... if this was the case, and this is what happened, why wouldn't they have told us this back in August 8th? That's a question you Errol Spence shills need to answer. It makes no sense to omit this information. Back then. And again, it adds to the implausibility of the overall case. And it adds to the proof this is a fake looking ass story. The fact that all the details are changing. Initially, it's a tear. Initially, we didn't notice it. Now, it's a full break. And now, we had a big sparring story tear up. And now, we initially had it checked by a doctor in Dallas. Which is another point I've just skimmed over. Errol Spence alleges that he hurt it in sparring and got it checked at a doctor in Dallas. And then flew out to Las Vegas, which was the original commission test. People, we didn't hear about that. Do you understand? When Errol Spence came out and pulled out of the fight, that was on the basis of the Las Vegas commission failed test. Errol Spence has just alleged in this ESPN piece that he hurt it in sparring in Dallas, Texas, and got it looked at in Dallas, Texas. At which point, allegedly, Al Heyman says he must fly out to Las Vegas immediately to... what did they say? After consulting with Al Heyman, Spence immediately travelled to Las Vegas on August 8th for his comprehensive pre-fight medical testing. The eye exam was conducted on August 9th by ophthalmologist Dr. Thomas F. Kelly, who told him he couldn't fight and reiterated, "You've got to get this fixed ASAP." Now, that's the only story we heard. The only story we heard was that Spence didn't know anything about his eye. He got to the Las Vegas test on August 9th, and the doctor said he couldn't fight. At which point, Errol Spence said he contested it. Do you not forget that? Errol Spence I'm going to show it on your screen now. Errol Spence, on August 9th, when it was confirmed he couldn't fight, he was putting posts out saying, oh, the doctor said I couldn't fight, but I've got a second and third opinion. I want to fight still. That's what Errol Spence's position was. Initially, Errol Spence's position was, my eye was fine, and all of a sudden I've got this shock test result that my retina's torn. I can't believe it. We're getting a second and third opinion on it. We want to fight still. Now, all of a sudden, Errol Spence is saying that, oh, he hurt his eye in sparring, got it looked at in Texas, flew out to Las Vegas, and they confirmed he can't fight. Now, what? I don't know about you, Mania, but again, the story doesn't make any sense. If you've torn your retina in, or detached your retina in Dallas, Texas, why do you need to fly out to Las Vegas for? Especially when you've got a damaged eye. Eyes are extremely sensitive to pressure. And flying in the sky in 30,000 feet is messing with all kinds of pressure. So why would a man who's got a damaged eye need to fly to Las Vegas to get his eye checked when he's already had it looked at by a doctor in Texas? And to add insult to injury, to add to the craziness of this story, check this out, yeah? Errol Spence has just told you in his ESPN piece that he hurt it in sparring, had it looked at, then spoke to Al. Al told him to fly out to Las Vegas to get it looked at by the commission. But then he flies back to Texas to get it fixed. Texas is where he had the operation done, allegedly. So what was the point in flying to Las Vegas? If your retina's torn, you just get it fixed in Texas. Why fly to Las Vegas for? And then fly back? For what purpose? You telling me they ain't got no eye checkers in Texas, even though that's where you had the operation done? Oops. Don't make no sense. Don't make no sense whatsoever. Someone explain to me why you'd need to fly to Texas for. Sorry, to Las Vegas for. For what purpose? If your retina's snapped, you ain't fighting. And besides, do you guys not find this weird how we didn't hear about any of this? Do you not find it weird we didn't hear about the sparring stories? Do you not find it weird? We didn't hear about any of this stuff leading up to it. All we heard about was Errol Spence didn't have a clue about his eye, and the Las Vegas Commission found it. We heard that Errol Spence flew out to Las Vegas for his standard flight, for his standard eye checks, for his standard commission tests, and they found it miraculously. We didn't hear about this big song and dance beforehand. Errol Spence treated it like a shock, which is why he wanted a second and third opinion. Why else would he need a second and third opinion if he knew he damaged it in training and he knew his eye was giving him jip? The whole reason he needed a second and third opinion was because he didn't know what they was talking about and his eye was fine and he wanted to fight. If he knows his eye is smoked, and that's the reason he flew out to Las Vegas to get the pre-fight tests, it all just doesn't make no sense to me. Because another part of it, the pre-fight tests are on a set date. You can't just fly out, if that makes sense. Your pre-fight, for example, your pre-fight tests have to be booked in. So, if he hurt his eye, what are the chances of you hurting your eye, getting it checked by a local Texas doctor, and then conveniently having your scheduled commission tests a day later? What are the chances of that? Exactly, there weren't no chances of that, because it didn't happen. How about that? They've made it all up, and in doing so, that's how the truth normally works. When people tell lies, they get caught out. And I'm sorry, this is the biggest sham lie story I've ever heard. They're laughing at the fans at this point, 100%. I've never heard something so sloppy before. I've never heard a story so convoluted and so twisted. Genuinely, never heard anything like it. The way this story is just it's just crossed over. New details been added in at will. Bits been changed. Gone from a torn retina to a detached retina. Wow. To a we didn't know his eye was hurt. To we had a massive sparring war. Never seen anything like it. And if any of you might disagree with the points I've made, please just show the evidence. And if all of this doesn't add up to it all being a big sham and a big fake, I don't know what does. Because to add insult to injury, what we know is, even if you wanted to believe this story, with all the holes in, and all the amendments, and all the changes, guess what? He only showed one picture. No video footage, no live stream, no whatever. One manky picture. Wow. He down bad. Anyway, the last point I want to make is,